Today, I'm really excited to welcome somebody that I've been connecting with on social media and learning from and networking and sharing ideas with for a very long time, but never actually got to have a proper conversation with him. So I'm really excited to welcome to the Tip Top Tips Edu show today, none other than Mr. Peter G. Horner. And I say that because there's this world, isn't there, Peter, where you know people by their Twitter handles rather than just their actual names. And obviously, your Twitter handle is your name, but with the G there, and we've learned what your middle name is as well, haven't we now? But, really excited to welcome you to the show, Peter. You're someone who is a real advocate for use of Google tools. I regularly see you sharing hints and tips around use of Chromebooks and Chrome extensions and ways in which you can best support users with their use of Google technologies. But for those who don't know you, could you just spend a moment talking about who you are, what you do, your job, and your experience and those sort of things? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, Mark. Yeah, and good to talk to you finally face to face as well. Yeah, so I'm Peter Horner. I am an IT manager and digital learning lead at Barton Peveril Sixth Form College. So we're quite a large college, about 4,500 students, located in Hampshire, so south of England. And yeah, I've worked in IT for about 20 years. Previously, I was quite Microsofty and also did a lot of development work, but over the last, I'd say 6 or 7 years, I kind of become interested in Google Workspace and Chromebooks, and went down the route of doing the Google Certified Trainer, and more recently Innovator. I've done some other things outside of that as well. I've also done a master's degree looking at mobile learning, so how we're using mobile technology to support learning in the classroom, and that really opened up my eyes a lot more and kind of encouraged me to really collaborate more with teachers and how we're actually using technology to kind of benefit our students.
Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Peter. And I guess the masters then sort of like gave you a few pointers and a few ideas about how to then, let's say, work with colleagues and move things forwards within the college. I see you sharing some brilliant things at the college, and as a college that uses Chromebooks, have you got any tips? Because we are on the Tip Top Tips show. Thinking about Chromebooks and your experience of working with colleagues, have you got any sort of hints and tips for those sort of people that are getting started with Chromebooks?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with Chromebooks back in 2014, and so my first tip really is start small. We only started with 12 Chromebooks just to get a feel for how they work. We started, ironically, I always think this is quite ironic, in our history department. You wouldn't normally think humanities history would be at the leading edge of technology, but they were the first to become really interested in Google and were keen to try Chromebooks. And the first kind of thing we explored with them is using them for collaboration. So, those collaborative Google Docs where you can have a team of students, a group of students working together on a single document. And yeah, that kind of blew people away at the time. It's something we tried much earlier, many years ago. I don't know if you remember when Windows XP Tablet Edition and OneNote, we tried something similar with that back in the early 2000s, but it didn't work very well. So that was kind of the first time we'd tried it again since, and it kind of blew us away how simple it was to do that. So yeah, definitely start small. And yeah, the thing I think is strongest about Chromebooks is the collaboration around Google Docs, slides, and now I've got Jamboard as well, all really good for kind of student group work.
Yeah, no, collaboration is fantastic. And one of the things which led me to wanting to try and use Google more in the classroom myself, the ability to have students working, doing peer assessment, feedback. There are so many positive uses for the collaborative features within Google Workspace and Google for Education, as it used to be called. But speaking about things like Docs and Jamboard and what have you got any tips around collaborative activities for using these sorts of tools?
Yeah, also, so for instance, just brainstorming tasks, or have you heard of Crazy Eights? That's a great one for coming up with lots of different ideas. 30 seconds per idea to quickly sketch out on a screen or type it onto a post-it note on Jamboard or on slides. And yeah, that's a fun activity. I've done activities with our digital, we call them our DigiGurus, our students who are like our digital leaders, where we've done like an app design task where we wireframe an app to solve a problem at college using Jamboard. So you can have like a phone kind of piece of clip art there, and yeah, students can sketch out for app ideas really quickly before kind of trying to make something a bit later, and do that collaboratively, which has been an amazing tool, especially last year during lockdown.
No, absolutely. Listen, Peter, I'm just thinking out loud here, really, but I say many people are aware of things like docs, slides, and sheets as being the sort of the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint equivalents. Not that it's always surprising to me that people haven't often heard of Jamboard. Now, I'm a huge fan, and the uses are massive. It's so easy to work in cross device. It doesn't have to be on a Chromebook even. But for those that don't know what Jamboard is, could you share a little bit about what Jamboard is for us?
Absolutely, yeah. So Jamboard is Google's interactive whiteboard app, to put it simply. It's something I tried introducing when it first came out, but not very many people were interested and didn't really see what the benefit was. It really took off for us when we locked down, because of course teachers needed to be able to write on screen and still wanted to be able to do collaborative activities with students involving brainstorming with post-it notes, or just for a teacher to be able to put in a slide and put that on a Jamboard and annotate it. So it opened up lots of uses, which traditionally would be done on an interactive whiteboard or a digital screen out front of a classroom. But this enabled teachers to do it on their Chromebook from home, any location. And I'm pleased to say it's still being used a lot. Students using it a lot as well now. And yeah, it's really taken off.
No, brilliant. And I'm a big fan of it myself too. You mentioned using it as, for activities and sort of teaching and learning activities during lockdown, and it's lovely to hear that it's still being used now. And another activity that lots of educators had to engage with and learn about was being able to record your screen for those sorts of not only for lessons that are live, but for sharing for asynchronous access sort of later on, and all these sort of things. And there are lots of tools that you can record your screen with. How do you go about sort of sharing with your colleagues about how to record their screens? And can you recommend any tools that would be useful for that sort of activity?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's something which wasn't very common before lockdown, was it? Screen recording, no. But has taken off hugely. So our favourite tool at my college is Screencastify. It was there's a free version, firstly, so you can do a recording up to 5 minutes, but it's relatively inexpensive for organisations to purchase. And the reason I like it most out of the other screen recording tools, so things like Loom and as others out there as well, is it saves all your recordings onto Google Drive. So it keeps things nicely organised for us. And from there, we can share that recording out on Google Classroom, or we can upload it to YouTube. So sharing from there is really easy. It's a Chrome extension. So it's available on our Chromebooks, it's available on our Windows PCs and Apple Macs. Everywhere we're using Chrome, and it's super easy to use. A teacher just needs to hit record, and then they can either record a lesson, or we've got teachers using it to provide video feedback, really useful in the arts subjects, for instance. That's been very popular, and even we've got support staff using it as well, and senior leaders if they're creating training or want to share something asynchronously. It's a great option. Other ways of doing this, so you could use Google Meet, for instance. So you could use Google Meet to record if you've got a Google Workspace Plus license, which has got to be paid for, unfortunately. But the other really useful tool now on Chromebooks, which has got released, I think it was the end of last year. Chromebooks now have a built-in screen recording tool and screen capture tool. So Chromebooks now for free will let you do a recording. You can record your full screen or a partial part of your screen. You can add a voiceover, and it records it directly to your Chromebook, and that's freely available for free with no restrictions. Does lack a few of the advanced features, but if you just want to do a straight up screen recording really quickly, then definitely check out the built-in screen recorder.
Great stuff. Thank you, Peter. You mentioned advanced features there. What sort of advanced features does Screencastify have over the sort of built-in Chrome screen recording tool then?
Yeah, so Screencastify will let you edit your video in the web browser. Of course, there's other products with video, which we mentioned earlier briefly, and so Screencastify lets you edit the video. It's also got some new features recently added, which allow you to add questions to pop up during playback of a video for students to check their understanding as they're watching that video, and it gives you a live view on a web page. You can actually see which students have watched your video, how they've answered those questions, and see if you need to give any help then to your class.
That's really interesting. That makes it a far more rounded product than just a screen recording, doesn't it? And clearly, developing and building it for education too. I would assume from the features they're building there.
Yeah, absolutely, and it integrates really nicely with Google Classroom, which we use to dish out all our assignments here. So it's good to see any edtech company really not just staying stagnant, but continually adding new features to stay up to date and enhance our use of technology.
Great stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Peter. I'm sure that your tips there will be really useful to our viewers. Thank you very much. Something that's I'm really passionate about, and I think is really, really important, is the area around accessibility. We mentioned before about capitalization, for example, on your Twitter handle as a means of being more easily supported with screen readers for those who use them when we capitalize our words like that. Accessibility is something I'm hugely passionate about. But I must admit, whilst I'm really well versed on accessibility features inside an iPad on iOS and iPad OS and to a certain extent, but to a slightly lesser extent on Windows, but I'm not as well versed on the accessibility features on a Chromebook. Could you share some of the features and the tools that are available to sort of make access to technology more accessible using a Chromebook?
Yeah, absolutely. So, firstly, our Chromebooks kind of form the basis of our support for learning support students. So they get their own college Chromebook, and the big reason for that was the accessibility tools built into Chromebooks. So you've got, of course, things like a screen reader where it will read back a document or web page or PDF. Google Docs has a really good dictation tool, which allows you to just talk and Google Docs will write everything down. And of course, Google use all their AI and machine learning in the background to make sure that is really accurate. One new feature added to Chromebooks, I think it was earlier this year, which is really interesting. So you may have seen in Google Meet or on YouTube, Google have the ability to add live captions, so dynamically created captions. This is now actually built into Chromebooks as well, so you can turn it on under accessibility settings, and it will add captions onto any media for you. So any other video hosted on any other video website, and it will dynamically add that for you. So I think that's a really interesting feature to add. But also just some of the more basic features, things which I encourage our teachers to use during online learning, particularly when presenting their screen, is to make your mouse pointer bigger, make it a brighter color so it's easier to see, or just pinch and zoom in your screen and enlarge areas just so it's really easy to see for students on their devices, because we don't know what kind of device a student might be on. They could just be on a phone, for instance, or
exactly.
or obviously could be partially sighted, and that's definitely gone down well. Adding that on.
And there's a great tip held in there as well, actually. One thing which I love about Chromebooks is that many of them now are actually touchscreen enabled, aren't they? So you can easily just tap on the screen and pinch and zoom and do all these things, which isn't something which comes as readily as standard. Sure, you can do it on a few Windows laptops, but it seems to be the case that the majority of Chromebooks nowadays tend to be that sort of touchscreen where you can actually engage with it. A lot of them are flippable, and the price point's so compelling as well, isn't it, when you compare it to other things? If you compare like a Chromebook to, say, a MacBook, the costs are quite considerably different, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've almost always bought touchscreen Chromebooks. They're only slightly more expensive, but I think it opens up so many more uses for using Chromebooks for students. And I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and at that age, they don't know how to use a mouse, but they do know how to use a touchscreen on an iPad or a Chromebook, and it just makes it a lot more intuitive, especially for learners who have not really grown up with a traditional desktop computer in the house, which everyone uses. We've moved on from that now, haven't we? And I think just having a touchscreen, it makes it a lot more interactive and intuitive, and a lot simpler to use. I mean, if I go to a non-touchscreen device now, I still find myself reaching for the screen and have to stop myself. Oh no, back to the touchpad. It's just a lot more intuitive.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I had the same experience with my children. They're a bit older now, at 10 and 12, but way back when, they were so used to using things like the iPad and what have you. When they then came to sit down at the a laptop, I put on some, I don't know, some Teletubbies or Peppa Pig or whatever, and they would want to reach to the screen and interact and engage with the screen, and they were always surprised when it wouldn't work. Sometimes they get really frustrated and cry, and like very young children can do. But it's what expected, really, for young people as they're going through, and again, they don't have that fine motor control, and again, that links into nice sort of accessibility parts of it, doesn't it, to have that ability to engage and interact with the actual screen as well.
Yeah, the other day, my daughter was using Google Earth, for instance, which just really lends itself to a touchscreen device. Absolutely.
I'd say teaching with Chromebooks is something that I wanted to sort of jump into. Have you got any tips for our viewers and listeners on how you can make good use of a Chromebook as a teacher?
Yeah, so interestingly, so all of our teachers here have a staff Chromebook they're given from the college. If you're a teacher, I recommend going for a slightly higher end model than the student Chromebooks. Just if you're going to be running, doing screencasts and running lots of meets and slightly more intense use, definitely worth going for a slightly higher end device. And particularly, many Chromebooks now allow you to use a stylus, which I think adds a lot as a teacher. A stylus works well with Jamboard and the other kind of drawing apps on the Chromebook. So apps like Chrome Canvas is the built-in drawing tool on the Chromebook. Google just released a new one called Cursive, which is a handwriting note-taking app on a Chromebook. And having a stylus is really very useful. And Chromebooks have some really cool stylus tools. So things like having a laser pointer or a screen magnifier, and you can just use a stylus and point to where you want on the screen, and it just draws your class's attention to that. So that's been very popular, having that. And I think really the best thing is just all the extensions available to teachers on Chrome now. So Screencaster, what we've already mentioned. A very good accessibility one is Read and Write. But one particularly for teachers we've used a lot this year is Moat for providing audio feedback in Docs, Sheets and Slides. So there's a whole world of extensions out there, and a good place to go to if you're a teacher looking at extending your own use of Chromebooks or looking for ideas of how to use Chromebooks with your classes is the Chrome App Hub, which is a site created by Google where they share lots of great ideas around using Chromebooks in the classroom, and recommend lots of interesting tools there. I initially got a little bit of resistance from a few teachers when we switched to going full Chrome, But yeah, I'm pleased to say now everyone's really embraced that. I like how fast it is now to start off a lesson and having something a lot more portable and just something, from my point of view, really, I have to worry less about things like updates and security, because Chromebooks kind of take care of all that for me, and it's kind of freed up a lot of my time to kind of use it more usefully, kind of working with teachers and how we actually use these devices to benefit learning.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And teachers need tools that just work, don't they? One of the things it was pre-Chromebook, but one of the things that compelled us to think carefully about what we were using in my school was the ability to have things which just worked, instant on. That ability to not have to worry about having to do loads of updates all the time, and the thing just working, and long battery life. There are lots of reasons why Chromebook are a really compelling offer for education, and not of which is things like the plethora of huge, there's just so many extensions you can bring in, and often, at no cost as well. You mentioned a real favourite of mine there, Moat. And there are so many uses available through using Moat. You can be linked to accessibility. If you've got the pro version, you've got the transcription there. You can sort of speak maths equations, and it can convert that into the maths in there as well. It was a great session. I was involved with the Future of EdTech conference last week, and Eleni Kritzis, an Australian educator, I'm sure you'll know, was sharing some of the ways in which she's using Moats in a completely different setting to in which you work. So she works in primary education, and she was talking about how she can use it on slides for creating sort of mood conversations in the classroom, or calming the class, and leaving things for a voice on the actual slides. But again, like many things with Chrome, with Chromebooks, if it works in Chrome, it doesn't have to be limited to the Chromebook as well. So you could be using it in on your Chromebook at work, but you log in on your Chrome instance on your computer at home, and you can still access all those tools, and you can be so portable in so many different ways, can't you?
I think that's a really, really good point, actually, because going kind of full Chrome, and I've done it as well, and my team have done it, and it's forced us to review kind of all of our old workflows and update them to be more cloud friendly, which, as you say, makes them more portable. So we can access whatever we need to on any device and any location. So if I've not on this Chromebook, just because I've adapted the way I'm working, it means I've just got more ready access to everything I need to do my job, really, which has really paid off during the various lockdowns, but now continuing to pay off. We've gone through blended learning, and now we're still continuing to have a little bit of online learning for some activities, and I've also seen it enhance how teachers are creating resources for flipped learning as well. And that's really kind of benefited things.
I wanted to not to catch you out, but certainly an unplanned question, Peter. But I do see you sharing lots of time-saving tips and things like this on social media. One of the things that I love is a good old-fashioned keyboard shortcut. And they can sort of improve and increase your productivity and efficiency in so many different ways. And I know there are lots of keyboard shortcuts you can use on a Chromebook. But I wondered, just to wrap things up here, maybe you could just sort of share what is your favourite keyboard shortcut that's available to you on a Chromebook, and perhaps one. Lots of people will know things like Control and C, Control and V for copy and paste, and those sorts of things. But because they may have come over to Chrome from a Windows environment, and so it makes sense that those sort of similar ones would work, and of course they do. But do you have a sort of top tip, keyboard shortcut that you think every Chromebook user should actually know?
So I'll give you two, actually. So my favourite one to tell people is Control-Shift-T, which will restore all of your tabs. So if you've accidentally closed a window, or if you've restarted your Chromebook or your browser, press Control-Shift-T, and it will bring back magically all of your tabs, which is a huge time saver. Another one, which for Chromebook users, so you've got a row of keys along the top of your keyboard, where the normal function keys are, And there's one which is a square with 2 lines against it. Lots of people overlook that key. It's incredibly useful. So if you press that, that will show you all of your windows you've got open. But more importantly, it lets you create virtual desktops. So then you can have multiple desktops with different windows open on each one. And it's a really good way of just organizing your applications or windows you've got open around particular tasks if you wanted to. It's just a really good way of just getting a complete overview of everything you've got open and kind of keeping your virtual desk area organized.
Those are 2 great tips. I'll jump back to the magic that is Control-Shift-T in just a moment, but the ability to sort of, organize your workflow, have things in separate places and spaces. I'm a huge fan of having different desktops for different activities and different tools you got, and grouping them together for different things. It's so useful. But Control-Shift-T is just an absolute favorite of mine too, Peter. Thanks for sharing that one. I've used it in class when I've got a naughty student. Like your teacher radar sort of picks up someone who's not really doing quite what they should be doing. And if you haven't got a classroom management tool where you can see all your students' screens, you walk over, and by the time you've walked over to see the students, of course they've closed it down, haven't they? And they're sitting there thinking, I know, I've got away with this. And you just, can I use your keyboard a second, please? And you just do the Control-Shift-T, and it comes back, and you catch them having watched, in the middle of watching something on YouTube or playing a game somewhere they shouldn't be, that sort of thing. It's just like, it's like a magic moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an absolute favourite. But in equal measure, it's such a lifesaver when, for some reason, you close down the wrong tab by mistake. You think you might have lost a load of work.
Absolutely, yeah.
All that sort of thing. It's absolute godsend. Thank you so much for sharing that, Peter. To wrap up, Peter, is there anything else you wanted to share? Anywhere else we can find you online? And we can see that you're on Twitter as Peter G. Horner. Anywhere else, or anything else you'd like to mention before we end?
Yeah, so I'm also on YouTube. So yeah, check out if you search for Peter G. Horner EdTech. It's a channel I started during lockdown to support our teachers. It's stuff I shared out there as well on Twitter, just to help everyone with kind of that transition to online learning. My video output has slowed a bit since then, but I do still have a few more planned, which I plan on releasing soon. There's some more advanced stuff there as well about some more technical things you can do with your Chromebook, like turning on Linux apps, for instance, which opens up lots of different possibilities on Chromebooks if you want to get a bit more technical and use your Chromebook as a full desktop replacement. But yeah, Twitter and YouTube, and you can find me occasionally on Instagram as well. Again, Peter G. Horner on there.
Great stuff. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today, Peter. Really appreciate it, and lovely to meet you, albeit virtually, for a better conversation than we might have through a Twitter DM or a Twitter chat. So thanks so much for that. And thank you to you for joining us, for viewing this episode. If you want to find out more, please do visit youtube.com/NetSupport, where you'll find all of the previous episodes of Tip Top Tips Edu, Couches of Primary Importance podcast, and of course the Check It Out show and all things NetSupport. Thanks so much for joining me again today, Peter. Really appreciate it, and look forward to catching up with you very soon. Thanks.
Brilliant to talk to you, Mike. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.